There is a new social media app on the scene, Threads. And in this episode, I'm going to be diving deep into everything you need to know about Threads as an entrepreneur or creator. Should you even include it in your strategy? What should you be posting on Threads? And how does it integrate into your Instagram and video strategy? I have been in the social media and marketing space for the last few years, and I have been an early adopter for features like IGTV and Reels. So I want to dive deep into what you need to know about the newest social media app. So first of all, let's start with an introduction to Threads. What is Threads? Threads is an app created by Instagram, by Meta, and it was created to be kind of a knockoff version of Twitter. Instagram has a running list of apps that they love to knock off, so this definitely isn't surprising at all. So the goal of this app is to be focused on conversation. So it is a primarily text app, but you also do have the options to add in photos and videos, which I'll talk a little bit more in the types of content you want to be creating. And the launch of Threads was huge. It quite literally broke records on how many people joined the app in the first few days. And even as I'm recording this, the app is still super new, but so far it has been received really well. It's been a positive place for people to create, for people to consume. And one of the biggest things that Meta did right with this app is they made it so incredibly easy to start your account without having to start from scratch because it integrates with your Instagram account. So when you go to start your Threads account, you're able to integrate who you're following, but also your followers are able to easily follow you. And so I think this really contributed to its success right out of the gate. And it's definitely what's going to make it a different type of new social media app compared to the other ones that we've seen pop up over the past few years. You might have forgotten about or be thinking about apps like Clubhouse, Lemon8, or Be Real. And we could probably dive deep into a lot of reasons on why those things didn't stick. But one of the reasons why I think Threads will stick is because of its integration with Instagram, which we're definitely going to talk about throughout this episode. So whether or not you decide if Threads needs to be in your strategy right this moment, or if you're wanting to maybe focus on it at a later time when the algorithm and the features kind of pan out, I highly recommend at least setting up your account. It'll only take a few minutes to create your account. So at least if people are tagging you or looking for your content, you're at least established on the platform. I want to give you a little bit of a tour of Threads as of the recording of this video, keeping in mind the app will definitely evolve. It is still a baby. So first thing you see is your home feed. So this is going to be a good mix of people that you follow and also recommendations that it think you might like. I know the ranking and the algorithm on Threads isn't really fully developed right now and is definitely a low ranking system. So what you might be seeing and discovering now definitely will probably change as the app evolves. And then you have the search functionality. So for right now, you can search other accounts, but I'm envisioning that eventually you'll be able to search other keywords, topics, and maybe hashtags. It's uncertain to say whether these will come over to Threads or not, since they're a big part of Instagram and also a big part of Twitter. Then in the center of your screen, you have the ability to create a new thread or a new post. So you can just start typing to write out your thread. You'll see that little clip icon, and that's where you can add in photos or videos to your thread. And also you'll see below the start a thread, you'll see add to a thread. That's where you're automatically able to post your initial post, but also continue and kick off the replies in the thread. So kind of for like a two-parter in your post. And one other thing I want to point out here under the start a new thread feature is you can see where it says anyone can reply. This is where you can adjust on who can actually engage with your content. So this is a really unique feature to Threads. So if you want anyone to be able to respond or just people that you follow or people that are mentioned. Then you have your activity tabs. This is where you're able to see who's following you. You're able to see replies, mentions, and engagement on your posts. And then you have your profile. So when you set up your account, you're able to literally copy and paste everything, including your profile photo and even your bio. And then you're also able to add in a link to your bio. So this can be like a Linktree tool or even your website. And with your your view, you see two main things. You see your threads, so posts that you have created, and then you also are able to see your replies on other pieces of content. As you can see, the interface of threads is really clean, really crisp, really easy to navigate. So even if you're not a super tech savvy person, it'll be pretty easy for you to get a hang of all the features within just a few moments of downloading and using the app. Okay, so now I want to dive into an overall strategy for threads and how it should look in your social media strategy. And then I want to share some content that you could be creating on threads. So the biggest thing I want to talk about when it comes to your thread strategy is if you do not have the capacity now, if you are overwhelmed with social media, then you should not be using threads as a part of your strategy. I know everyone's telling you that you should be an early adopter, and you're probably feeling a lot of FOMO that you should be on this new social media app or you're going to be missing out on some big opportunity. But at the end of the day, you could start using threads, and in a few months, a few weeks, you can easily burnt out on not only that app, but on other apps as well. So if you don't have the capacity, I don't see threads going away anytime soon. The least you can do is set up your account and just get familiar with it, but you don't have to integrate it into your strategy. But if you're excited about this platform, you have capacity and you see a lot of promise for your own unique goals and how threads can support that, I want to give you a few things that you can start to leverage. So overall, I see threads as being a complementary social media platform to Instagram. And with that being said, there's two main benefits that threads can have to your strategy: the ability to grow your community and the ability to nurture your community. In terms of community growth, this is the ability to get discovered and connect with and engage with new people that might not have found you otherwise using threads. So they can discover you on their homepage when maybe they're being recommended your content, or through you replying and responding to being mentioned in other people's posts that they follow, and then them discovering you from that conversational content. This is definitely one of the benefits of being an earlier adopter, because being discovered and getting growth that is outside of your current audience is going to be a lot easier in those early days. And since Threads is so integrated with Instagram, it's really easy for someone to find you on Threads and then to go over on Instagram to get an entirely different experience with your brand. So they definitely go hand in hand for growth. But then, like I've already mentioned, your current followers are probably already going to be following you on Threads. So this allows you to have another touch point with your community and for you to be able to engage with and connect with and create for them in an entirely different surface and way. And this kind of leads to the question of, where does it fit into your sales strategy? Should you be selling? Should you be sharing links? There's been a lot of opinions on this on the Threads app. And while I think it's a little too early to fully tell what it will look like, I honestly think that Threads isn't going to be the platform that you use in your launches or your campaigns or promotions. It should be used as a conversational platform for building and growing community. But this definitely means that the content that you choose to create on Threads can definitely warm up potential leads and get them interested in your offers, which definitely can lead to sales. But I definitely don't think this is the place to be like, hey, join my program. Here's a bunch of launch content related to it. And when it comes to link sharing, it's really easy to share links because even in that post, people can go directly to it. And so I know it can be tempting, but I want to make sure that you're not using this as a place to promote yourself and to speak out of a megaphone at people. You want to make sure you're engaging with people first. That's how you're going to see the best results with this app. So if you're talking about something related to your podcast or your email list or your offers, and someone's asking for more, it definitely makes sense to share that link, right? But you want to make sure you're not creating content around your link. That's just my hot take on the selling and link sharing, especially in the early days of this app. I find that you'll see so much better results if you focus on community growth and community nurturing, because that will then in turn support your sales. I highly recommend listening to my podcast episode where I talk a lot more about profile experience. This will give you a lot of context on how to nurture people that are completely new to your audience, but also people that are currently in your audience, and how that leads them to the last stage of the follower journey, which essentially is to convert or take that next step of investing in your brand. Okay, now let's brainstorm some content that you can be creating on Threads. So there's two main ways that you can actually be creating content. You can be a conversation starter or a conversation contributor. So a conversation starter is actually posting your own Threads content. And since this is a conversational app, make sure that you're encouraging people with calls to action to actually engage and be a part of your content. And in terms of being a conversation contributor, this is where you're able to reply to existing threads or where you're able to quote an existing post and add your own text on top of it. Being a part of existing content and actually adding value to it is actually harder than just posting. But while a lot of people focus on creating your own content, I actually think that you could literally not create any content of your own and just focus on being a part of those conversations and find a lot of great success with threads because it really is a skill to add to an existing conversation. So before I get into 3 different types of content you can create with those different types of threads, I want to answer the question of should you be using the photos and videos? This is another thing that has a lot of opinions. And of course, as a video coach, I love visuals. And I think it's really important to consider that some people, when consuming content, definitely need visual aids to get the most out of what you're creating. And so I like to think of threads as like a giant group text. And so if you're group texting someone and it makes sense to add a photo or an image or a video, I say add it. There's definitely been a lot of instances in my own content, whether I'm sharing my morning matcha or I'm sharing behind the scenes of my podcasting setup, where adding a visual has just made the thread so much more interesting and so much more engaging versus if I just listed it out with text. But it is really important to note that Threads is not the place to be recycling and reposting Reels, TikToks, or any other type of existing content. That is the easiest way to definitely not see great results with Threads. Cannot recommend. Okay, so the 3 different types of content you can be creating with Threads is behind the scenes content. So this can be sharing inside your business, your process, your story, which can look like sharing your to-do list for the day, sharing your podcast setup or behind the scenes of developing a new program or product, and essentially how things actually work in your business. Kind of like you'd share behind the scenes on a platform like Stories, that is how you can actually approach Threads, because behind the scenes in nature make people really, really nosy, interested, engaged, and chances are they're going to have follow-up thoughts or questions on what you're bringing them into. Then we have authority content, which is kind of your more educational, valuable type of content. This is where you're wanting to be creating content related to your industry and your niche and what you do, whether it's changing people's perspectives or offering tips that they can apply right away. When it comes to a primarily text app, I know it can be really hard to figure out, like, how do you get that perfect mic drop moment? But what it really comes down to is not what you're saying, but how you're saying it. And so if you can say it in the simplest but most effective way, I find this is what makes this type of authority content really perform well on an app like Threads. You want to get people thinking or doing something different from this type of content. And the last type of content is connection content. And I think this is what we're seeing a lot of on Threads is people being unhinged and really funny and sharing memes. So this could be sharing your thoughts and musings. This could be sharing your interests and things that aren't necessarily directly related to what you do in your business. And it can be a great opportunity to showcase your personality. You want to really be careful with this type of content because you want to make sure that you're staying true to your brand voice, your brand values, and who you are as a brand. I know it can be tempting to just kind of let loose on a platform like Threads. You want to make sure that you're not veering off completely. And I also want you to consider, why do you feel so comfortable being a little more relaxed on an app like Threads, and how you can maybe be more authentically you on all of your social media content. Just some food for thought. You definitely don't need to be funny or really great with memes to do well on a platform like Threads, but if that is your brand voice, that is your jam, then definitely lean into it on an app like this. But connection content is naturally very easy for connecting with your audience and actually having a two-way conversation with them. Hopefully this has inspired some ideas on where Threads fits into your strategy and what type of content you're creating. And if you found this valuable so far, make sure you like it if you're watching on YouTube, and make sure that you share this with someone that might be wanting to use Threads and they're kind of interested on where to start. Share the episode or share the video version. Okay, so naturally, as a video marketing coach, I want to talk a little bit about, so video is on and poppin'. Now we have Threads. So how do they work together? Do they work together in your strategy? Yes, they absolutely do. There's three main ways that Threads can actually really benefit your video strategy. The first is actually for testing concepts, and this can go both ways. This can mean you sharing some of your thoughts and musings and perspectives on an app like Threads and seeing what responses you're getting, seeing what's resonating, and then turning that into video content. But you also can do it the other way around. And of course, I love repurposing with the lens that we don't want to copy and paste everything on every platform to another platform, right? No reposting TikToks and Reels to Threads. But you can definitely take something that you create a thread about and you can turn that into a quote video, whether it's the text that you're adding on the video, whether it's the screenshot, or if you're using that thread in the caption. Or you can also take the video content you're creating, maybe like a talking video, or even what you're sharing on stories, or really in any type of content. You can share a very specific mic drop moment from that original piece of content, like a quotable moment. You can take that topic from that original piece of content and kind of start a conversation about it on an app like Threads. Or you can kind of use it as a place to follow up and add additional thoughts, because if you found that people had a follow-up question on a podcast episode you were creating, Threads is a really great place to continue that conversation. And then lastly, it's a great place to build community. So while video can benefit you on really any platform that you're creating video content on, you're able to have another way of connecting, building community and conversations on Threads. So they really go hand in hand. And as you can see, just an overview of your strategy, the type of content you create, and even how it integrates with your video strategy. If you have the capacity to add in Threads, it can be a really low lift thing to add into your content mix. I know for me, what's worked is in the morning, I will post a handful of threads. And then in the afternoon, before I log off for the day, I will go and kind of reply and engage and respond to those threads and other threads. That means I'm not spending a ton of time on the app, but I'm still spending a lot of intentional time on the app. So my final thoughts to wrap up this deep dive into Threads is that there's no rush to be an early adopter. As someone who has been an early adopter and has seen how much value it can add to your strategy, if you have the capacity, go for it. But if you don't, it'll only burn you out and overwhelm you more. Make a plan to add on Threads when you can, and if you even want to. I recommend setting aside intentional time for Threads, because you want to make sure that it's not distracting from the other parts of your business and the other goals or other platforms that you're creating on. You don't want to neglect your other communities for a brand new platform. And the final thing is that a common theme I've been hearing with Threads is that it's so fun and carefree and we're connecting and we're being social. But I want to encourage you to think about how you can use that in your content all of the time. While Threads has definitely been a breath of fresh air in the social media space, you can use that same approach. It can be low lift, it can be fun, it can be authentic to you, and you can be building community around your content, even with your video content. I highly recommend joining my free Video Confidence Challenge if you're interested in a low lift approach to something like video content. Go to videoconfidencechallenge.com for all the details to join the free challenge. I hope you found this deep dive helpful. And if you know someone else that would love this episode all about Threads, make sure to share it with them. And if you're wanting to deep dive more into your content strategy, I highly recommend starting with my Back to Basics series. Here's a few other videos you might like. I'll see you in the next episode. I don't know why I just did that.